What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games Podcast. I gotta scooch my chair a little bit tonight because things are a little bit out of whack. But what's not out of whack is this is episode 100, which means we've been doing this for 100 weeks. I think we've probably crossed actual episode 100 probably 3 or 4 times by now, except we keep rebooting and retitling and rebranding. So, but welcome aboard for, I guess, what is maybe officially, for the first time in a long time, the first official number 100 in an E2KG Network podcast. Here with me, 75% of the time, as always, is Osiris Prime.
Hello, everybody.
And DBQ Hams.
I'm glad that Prime had some type of swag and paraphernalia to put on for our 100th episode. So.
I got my old school, my OG 8-bit.
I know. And speaking of old school, I didn't know that we had a special guest tonight. This is excellent.
We did. So rather than do a special episode thing of like, I didn't want to do giveaways. And then one of the things I thought about is a lot of the times when you have a podcast that you regularly listen to and they get to these episodes, what they do is they do an episode that is not like their typical format, and it winds up kind of sometimes being a thing that you don't really want to listen to. Like if it's a podcast about the gaming industry news, then they do an episode like this and they don't talk about any of the news. And you're like, I appreciate the nostalgia, but like I could have just gone back and listened to those old episodes. So what we did is we brought more power to the fight. The man who taught us how to go deep, the man who taught us how to dive, the man who taught us how to tear the gristle right off the bone of the gaming news and industry and keep the gaming media and journalists straight on the what's the what, Mr. Greylock 3491. How you doing, Gray?
When do I get to meet this guy that you're talking about?
I don't know. You separate the meat from the gristle all the time. So.
I just want to congratulate you guys on the show, on being 100.
Yeah, it was a little shady there for a while, a little rocky. We weren't quite certain if we were gonna continue doing this. We weren't quite certain if we would ever get this far. But as DBQ coined the phrase when we were going through the thoughts on this, he asked the question, was our ethos of this show enough to keep going? And we decided that it was. And so here we continue to sit right here at these desks, bringing you in-depth, hard-hitting, no holds barred, deep questions about what in the world are these guys doing. So one crew who seems to not be meandering too much in their strategic direction and intent is Bungie Studios. Guys who I originally became familiar with from playing the Myth series. Did any of you guys play that old school real-time strategy game on PC?
I know what you're talking about, but I have not played it. So.
Yeah.
Wait, this was the game in between Marathon and Halo.
Right. It was the game that I knew them for. So it was a fantasy RTS where you would command dwarves, elves, and I guess humans. The dwarves could throw satchels that had explosives in them, and then your elves were your bowmen, and then your humans were your knights or paladins who would ride into battle. And they'd actually did Myth 1 and Myth 2. I played Myth 2. And then as they were wrapping up Myth 2 development, they came up with this concept for a game, and I think that they were approached by Apple to make this game for the Mac. But, of course, Bill Gates, not to be undone, quickly swooped in and just bought the whole studio. And now most of us actually, in fact, I think the way we met, I would accredit 99% of that to the Xbox, which, of course, we most closely associate with the IP Halo. That legacy continues on now that Bungie has gone the full course as a Microsoft studio and then entered into a strategic, very close partnership with Activision. Now finally separates from that second behemoth and is kind of a boy all grown up and is now out on their own. So obviously one of the big things that dropped this week or in the wake of E3 were tidbits about what they were going to do with the Destiny franchise. We got announcements that it's coming to Stadia. We got announcements that it was going free to play in one kind of format. We heard about Shadowkeep and lots of other things. The news continues to drip and drab out about Destiny, and we expect that will continue. Quite honestly, what's been going on around the industry in the news cycle is this, what I call the E3 post-nasal drip, which is, it seems like everybody didn't get all their shots and rounds fired during E3. And so despite the 3-week buildup to that event, we continue to have alibi rounds being fired on range, as such as it were. One of the more interesting tidbits is the amplifying information and the increased certainty or clarity that we're gaining about what the plan is for Destiny. Overall, 3 primary things dropped in the past week. Number one, one of the online engines was able to determine and peer from an analytics standpoint that in the wake of those announcements, Destiny 2 concurrent player numbers rose, as far as they can tell, up above 1 million. There are lots of different reasons for that, which we're going to get into here. One of the big questions that I had, which is when you play Destiny 2 on Stadia, who shows up in that friends list? We were given some clarity about that by Bungie, stating that the Stadia player base and the PC player base are separate, although either will have the cross-save capability, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then interestingly enough, another story that we're going to break down and get into is this announcement that, and I forget exactly what element of Destiny this is. I was listening to it this morning, but I forget the name, but it's a Wolf's something or other. It's a specialized shotgun that was released. The team that implemented this weapon and allowed it to be equipped had already put in a large number of hours and put in a lot of back shifts and overtime to get the weapon implemented and out into the game. Once it was out, the play balance of it is a little uneven. It's a particularly lethal weapon, particularly in Crucible and PvP. And there have been calls to have something done with the weapon, either to balance it out or to remove it. Bungie did, in an act of transparency, announce this week that they are not going to do that they're going to roll it in to their next regularly scheduled update, which should hit sometime near the end of July, and talked about this being done for the purposes of work-life balance. All that being said, gentlemen, I throw those topics out to you and ask you for your opinions on any of those.
Okay, I'll start then. So I really appreciate the work-life balance piece of this, right? I mean, I think in an industry where it is really easy to chase after the new and now and demand it through a variety of social media, to have something fixed instantaneously, the era of community managers and engagement with fans, to be able to come out and to say, right, and to not ignore it, to not say that we're going to provide an update later, to just come out and address it, but to be open about it. I think this response has gotten, from most circles and from the Reddit community as well, right, that it's gotten a pretty positive, people can understand it or at least appreciate it. And the benefit, I think, is that having this come after the kind of hype and the interest around Shadowkeep and New Light, I think certainly helps, right? If they would have come out and said this at a time when early in Destiny 2's life cycle, where people were feeling burned out by the lack of content or the intransparency with level gating and diminishing XP, I think you'd have a different reaction from the community. But because there's been this different type of engagement with, as you said, the newly independent Bungie again, I think that it has resonated in a way that it might not have under Activision. Any other thought? I mean, so that's the exciting news, or at least the good news. It's not exciting if you're getting slaughtered by the shotgun, but at the same time, it's understandable. I think the exciting piece is the numbers are surging back up. I think it ties into the interest that people have of getting characters ready, or even the potential to know that we have cross save coming. So I can get a character ready and join people back up on Xbox or on PlayStation 4. Gray, I'm looking forward to jumping back onto Xbox and play, but I don't really want to level up all my characters again. If I can do a cross save, now I can come over and play. I think the question will be is how big is that Stadia base, and the good to have, what's that PvP community going to look like there, and is that, I guess this will be an interesting test of Stadia, right? So I'll throw this to you, Prime, since you've got your mic ready to go. Does the Stadia isolation make you a little less interested in jumping onto Stadia?
Yeah, yes, and I guess with the Stadia thing, I don't know, and the cross save. I guess I'm just a little confused on that still, on the cross save part of it. Obviously, I know what Stadia is. I'm still gonna play it, obviously, because I already pre-ordered the Founders Edition, or whatever they're calling that first edition. But just going through that article here, they're saying how so obviously you can't merge accounts. You won't just have one account and you can kind of move around, which is what it seems to say in this article. It's saying you're gonna have to choose one platform. So I don't know if that goes with the Stadia too, or if that's just even totally separate than everything.
So I think in DBQ you can clarify, because I know you've been listening to some of the podcasts. So what I got out of the article, I know some of the verbiage, how it was articulated, was a little bit wonky near the end, but I felt like it was saying, so one of DBQ and I's big questions was, what is cross save, right? Of course, the constraint on Destiny is you have 3 character slots. The question becomes, so does this mean you're going to get an expanded number of slots? Will you get 3 character slots per platform that you play on, and you're able to see across those, whatever platform you're playing on? What this article seems to indicate, and what the statements from the creative director seem to indicate, is that you're basically now going to have one Destiny account. You're going to have 3 characters. All those characters will be available across all platforms, but for it's a little dangerous. I'm going to start just referring to all this as the migration. Later, I may call this the Great Schism that's coming on the 17th of September. I hesitate to call it migration because there's a couple things going on that we know about, right? There's the move from Battle.net to Steam, which we have gotten clarity on. That is a forklift. Battle.net sign-in goes away on or before the 17th of September, and everybody who's currently on a Battle.net account will now see that in Steam. We still don't have things like, if your Battle.net username is different than your Steam name, what does that mean? What happens when you have friends on your Battle.net list who aren't on your Steam list, but they do have Steam IDs? Like, how does the cross connect go and all that? So there's things like that. But I think at the end of the day, what you're going to have to decide, and this is the thing that I dislike the most. My guess, and I haven't gone through this entirely, my guess is I probably have like what I want. So first of all, my original Destiny character, my deep dive Destiny character, the one I brought over from Xbox. Wait, no, the one I brought over from PlayStation is on PlayStation 4 now. But my hunt, and that's a Titan. But my hunter that I want to keep is on PC. So I'm screwed. Right, because I don't think you're going to be able to cross mingle. You're gonna have to holistically take one account, and that's so that's a choice. Where like I may want to keep my hunter because that might be the most level character that I have now. But what I'm going to lose is I'm going to lose that nostalgic thread that carries me all the way back to OG Destiny on the PlayStation 4. So that's a little disappointing.
So if I understand, if you have like I'll have a Stadia. Eventually, I'll have a Stadia Destiny character. I have my Xbox One right now, and just for poops and giggles, let's say I had a PC, a regular PC account. I would just have to choose one of those accounts, and that'll move forward. Okay, that's what I was. Yeah, just the way they worded it was just kind of weird.
You're more to the point. You're going to have a one-time opportunity to make a choice.
To just save that one,
and then. From that point forevermore, it's going to be those 3 characters.
Okay.
And in fact, I mean, even what you said, right? I have a Stadia character. I think in a lot of cases, people won't have Stadia characters. You're going to, like, the people who are new, will, but everybody coming from another platform, their Stadia characters will be their previously
I choose.
available characters. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if I can do that, then yeah. No, I mean that as far as the Stadia side, I don't. That won't affect me. You know, whether I want to play going forward. Just to go back to DB's question. So.
So I do want to break it a little bit to get Gray in on the conversation. Gray, before I launch into my tirade, you are also a software developer in the automation industry. My question to you is, how do you feel about Bungie's transparency that they're going to delay a fix for the weapon balancing until a regularly scheduled update?
Well, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. So, first of all, back on the cross save, that we had this. We had this when I went to buy Destiny 1. I almost bought it on the Xbox One. But they announced that if you bought it on the 360, you get the Xbox One for free. And so I bought it on the 360, and we had cross saves, and it was beautiful. Now, I could definitely see the heartburn. If you've worked up some characters on PS4, you've worked up some characters on Xbox One, or PS4 and PC, whatever. You know, you may just say, I'm going to leave this one console in an island, because I may not go back to it, and not merge it. Because you know what? Why? If you get 3 great characters on one, 3 great characters on the other, why? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, but I'll tell you, it was beautiful to be able to bounce back and forth between the 360 and one and just play your same 3 characters. So if you can do that between Stadia, which is probably a must, right? Between Stadia and your old characters, and then, you know, hey, you probably still have friends on the PS4 who want to play once in a while. So I think I want all games to do this. I just think it's awesome to have that cross save capability. Cross play is great too. Cross buy is even greater, but I think cross saves, in my experience with Destiny 1, it was awesome. That said, you think you think you could just nerf it a little bit and say, all right, we're going to do a deep dive on balancing this, but in the meantime, we all need to get some sleep, so we're just going to ratchet down the damage a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And leaving it overpowered for a long time just doesn't seem. It seems like it's going to make a lot of people upset. But I mean, I understand balancing one of these weapons. I mean, we're talking hours and hours of time. But if it's OP, man, just nerf it a little bit. Do a temporary nerf. I think they've done that in the past as well with other weapons. They've done a temporary nerf and then a more in-depth nerf.
Yeah, so my tirade is more about, and again, I'm definitely inside baseballing the thing, right? This comes from me working in the software development industry. I don't like this. I don't like that this is a conversation. I go back to, you know, how I manage my customer expectations and other contractor expectations, and like this is an internal team management leadership topic. It is none of anyone else's business. I'm not going to have a conversation with people about how I work my team because they don't get input on that. And so one of my big mantras, one of my big philosophies is, and I talk to my team about this all the time, because a lot of times they're like, oh, well, we should tell them about this, we should tell them about that. And I'm like, we don't have conversations with people that we're not inviting their input on, because the way people inevitably take it is they assume that because you're being open and transparent with them about that topic, they feel that that is an invitation for them to wade in and have input. And I'm like, unless I'm going to let you participate in that decision-making process, we're not going to have the conversation. So it's disappointing to me that this is a topic in the games industry and amongst game journalism in the game community now. I think in a lot of ways it's going to wind up disempowering development team managers, because now this stuff is out in the public, and the jury, right, the body that you're gonna be subject to review and consideration of is now wider and inappropriately so, right? Because my problem is well, you don't share in the pain of my performance evaluation or my profit sharing or my merit increase, right? You get to sit around and say, oh, you shouldn't be crunching that team. I'm like, but my boss and I have a discussion of what my performance parameters are, right? I also have an incumbent responsibility that I know or should know that, hey, if I can't retain great talent, that means I'm also going to not be able to recruit great talent. And all of that in summary is going to wind up with me being an underperformer, right? So I feel like that's where the rubric should lie and where it should have been left. My other problem is in partially no offense to anyone, but maybe it should be a little offensive to anyone. Like this is being opened up to a lot of people to render their opinion who don't know. They don't know software engineering. They don't know software development. They don't know leadership, and they don't know management. So why am I going to share the inside baseball track on how I'm treating my guys? And I use guys in a gender non-specific way for people who aren't managers and aren't leaders and haven't shared that burden and don't know my domain. Like so I don't know. That's where I land on it.
So I'm going to step up on your soapbox.
Yeah, go ahead.
And say, even if they didn't, 2 points. One, part of it I think is PR, right? Like it is. I see your track, but they haven't invited people to comment for the last 4 years on every minutia about weapon balancing, and that hasn't stopped the internet and social media and Reddit from ranting and raving about it. So staying quiet isn't going to stop anybody from complaining about it. So from a spin perspective, that there's a damage control aspect of this is, right. They could have said, they could have just said there will be a patch coming in the next update. They didn't have to say to give our people a rest, right? They could have just said that, but if they didn't say anything, it's not like BioWare Austin not saying anything has stopped the Anthem people from complaining about lack of communication. So
yeah, I guess my difference is the problem with the BioWare situation is that people talked, right? Like that conversation didn't occur because the company, and by that I mean company leadership and management, conveyed something in a PR thing. That happened because Jason Schreier got an insider track and exposed a lot of information that invited a lot of commentary. But my thing is, and I don't totally disagree with you. My thing is, right, what I maybe even don't like about it more is now you're going to have, because I never like this holier than thou thing. Like I treat my people great. We're not that company. Right. So now you're going to have this gamesmanship that will go on that again, to me, conflates the issue. Like, great. I'm glad you treat your people great. The problem is that there's an unbalanced weapon in the game. Right. That's one way to look at it. But the other thing is so today this plays well. The problem is that human beings are fickle. And so the next time you go to play this poker chip, it could very well blow up in your face, right? You could very well have a bunch of Destiny people who then offload because they go, well, if you can't balance weapons and you don't have, because my counter could be, well, your plan should have been that you should have had a reserve team on standby, right? You should have gone into like a DevOps mentality and been ready for people to immediately apply an immediate fix in case if you knew it wasn't sufficiently tested and it had the chance to have a defect escape once you deployed it to production, you should have had an emergency team on standby, right, to address it. Gray, were you going to jump in and add something?
Yeah, I wanted to say that you would think now these guys are very, very smart people, and they've been doing this a very, very long time. And I would think, just from in the process control industry, you have metrics in place. You watch your performance, like a PID loop controller. You watch your performance and you adjust. So I'm a little surprised because I am a huge fan of this studio. I think they have some really smart people working for them. I am absolutely surprised that they don't have, after a week of this thing being live, they don't know exactly what metrics to tweak. Like it should be a report that comes out. This thing's been live for 7 days. Look, we got to balance this, and this. I mean, their code should do that. It should provide them that report. That should be automatic. And the fact that people are going to have to put hours and hours and hours into balancing this is, it's sad. I want to say one other thing, though, and I don't know if anybody else out there feels this way. I am so tired of weapon rebalancing. I remember, you remember games would come out like Battlefield 1942, it was rock, paper, scissors, right? And it was perfectly balanced. And you knew what every weapon did in what every minute in every situation. And then they would balance it and they all became like vanilla. They all became like blah. Like they all kind of did the same thing. And I wish, it's like I'm not gonna the daily players, this is very important to them, but the weekly players, you're just messing up our game. But that's all I'll say on that.
So I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat here and take this in a different direction, because I think there are a number of recent examples with Destiny where they haven't balanced things quickly, right? I think that there are Spectral Blades, was something that was kind of overpowered for a while. There was a Titan helmet that marked people and gave additional tracking pieces, which when combined with another build set was kind of dominant in PvP. They just recently nerfed Whisper of the Worm, another sniper rifle. So there's a number of things that, and some of those things like the Titan helmet, people knew about, the community knew about and complained about for months before they came out with a patch. So here's my tinfoil hat, is that they know it's broken. They're not sure how to fix it. And this card is the politically savvy card of the moment that allows them and buys them some goodwill because of all the other stories going on, rather than saying, I'm not sure. Because I think Gray's point is right? They have potential metrics to look at. Whether or not they know how to tweak it, I think they've demonstrated that is a challenge for them.
And that's the piece of it that's unfortunate to me. And I don't want anybody to feel like I'm saying Bungie is a bad studio or Bungie is a mismanaged studio. I'm not saying that by any means. I'm actually addressing, this is an industry problem of a thing that has gotten outside of Pandora's box that to me should have never been let out. In my opinion, EA and BioWare should have never addressed the Schreier article. My response to that would have been, you have some employees' opinions. Those employees signed an agreement to not have those discussions outside of our corporate structure. They will be addressed appropriately. Right.
See, but I think this goes back to, this again goes back to Schreier, but it goes back to the Red Dead article. It goes back to the Vulture article where, you've got a Hauser saying that people work 100 hours a week and they're glad for it.
Yeah.
So there's other examples here, but
yeah, no. It's an industry-wide problem that in my opinion just has gotten out of control, and now we're seeing the ramifications of that. For this topic of the weapon balancing, I actually am completely on board with Bungie's decision from a technical perspective. Again, I threw the thing about the DevOps thing because I was just saying, like, I feel like you said, DB, they're putting out the team work-life balance, and I'm not saying that it's not the truth. I'm just saying it's not the discussion that I would have had with the public. From a technical perspective, and what I would have pointed at and why I'm on board with the decision, and it's a thing that I have said to customers before and will repeat, is when there is a defect that escapes, sometimes, very frequently, the best reaction to that is not to immediately try to fix it until you are absolutely certain that you know exactly the fix that needs to apply and you're certain that that's going to get it right. Because the worst thing you can do is to do this thing that I call thrashing the code, which is you got a defect. Some eager beaver engineer says, "Oh, I know." Like, one thing you learn not to react to is, "Oh, I know how to fix that." Well, hold on a second, right? Because again, what you get is you get code instability, and you can put yourself in this do loop where after the third, fourth, fifth attempt to fix it, you're like, "Where are we again? How do we get back to the original baseline of what's in charge?" So, those are esoteric things. All I'm saying is, it's going to be interesting to see this unfold. What to me is the core problem of this is there is a conversation now that started about crunch and how employees are treated and the working hours that is now permanently part of the discussion until something else blooms that people start paying attention to, and this is no longer a topic. And again, in my opinion, the only thing it can do is disempower management from the levers, wheels, dials, and knobs that they have to tweak in managing a team, because it's now subject to public opinion. But anything else that we want to talk about with regards to Destiny?
No, I liked your Pandora's Box piece, but I'm going to be disappointed because there's not two Pandora's Box. It sounds like there's just one.
Yeah, nice segue effort. A for effort. You didn't quite stick the landing on that, but and last note on Destiny, the fact of Destiny 2 being on the rise, we are exemplary of that. DBQ and I have both been spending time going back to the game and deep diving on it, largely in an effort to prep for the arrival of Shadowkeep and spend some more time so we can make choices about, well, which account are we going to emerge where and where are we going to do the cross save. So very good. Xbox. So there were lots of things out about Xbox. Again, in the walk up to E3, there was lots of stuff that came out at E3, and then there's further clarifications that were needed. This is one of the things that I mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned it on the show, but we may have come off as a little not overly excited about E3. My thing is, and maybe I mentioned this on the VR Game Night show, Gray, is I'm very excited because, in my opinion, the industry has the greatest degree of entropy and uncertainty that it's had in the last 6 or 7 years. We just don't know where people are going to go, and there's all these potentials for pivots. In the walk up to E3, my belief and understanding from listening to people who have insider contacts at Microsoft was that there were 2 Xbox projects in progress. One was a low-end, kind of like an NVIDIA Shield kind of device, was the impression that I had, that was going to be a streaming-only Project xCloud box. Not a lot of high-performance metal in the chassis. Then there was going to be the next successor to Xbox, Scorpio, right? And my understanding was the project code names were Scarlet and Anaconda. I may not have gotten that perfectly correct. Maybe I got off track somewhere, but that was my understanding. Word on the street now is that Phil Spencer says that Xbox Project Scarlet is just one console. It is the high-performance SKU that we heard talked about in the trailer montage that Prime hated so much from the E3 press conference. In addition to that, as I stated in the pre-show, the rest of the games industry seemed to not pay attention to the definition of this partnership between Sony and Microsoft that we heard about before E3. And so Spencer has come out and made more clarification about that. What Sony gets out of it, and I'm going to throw this out as my understanding, and if it's wrong, then you guys can correct me in the ensuing discussion. What Sony gets out of it is they get the thing that they needed, the thing that they have failed to really nail since the PlayStation 3 days, is they get a cloud-based platform which will incorporate best practices and lessons learned from Microsoft's, in my opinion, Class A service level tier, service-oriented architecture that they've provided as part of the Xbox Live service and everything that has been built up out of that point of origin. What Microsoft gets out of it is something that is not directly gaming related. So it is not a one-for-one trade. It's not Xbox partnering with PlayStation, right? It is much more so Sony Corporation, and what they are getting out of it is something that is directly PlayStation related, partnering with the Microsoft Corporation. In many ways, getting technology that is, my read on it is something that benefits predominantly HoloLens and their AR efforts. So they are getting lenses, artificial intelligence, imaging technology. Sony gets stuff out of it that helps them in their gaming business. Microsoft gets something out of it that helps them in some other part of their strategic corporate structure. That all being said, Gray, I'm going to let you get this one started.
You know, I the only part of the story I'm familiar with is the part where with the Azure cloud piece with PlayStation and Microsoft. And at first I'm like, you know, this is the lion sleeping with the lamb. What's going on here, you know? But you know, you think about who has a cloud today, and Microsoft gets, and Microsoft's been so good working with Nintendo, and they've been so amicable talking about everybody that you know, is there a reason why PlayStation wouldn't hook up with Google or Amazon? So like, who has the clouds? Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Microsoft has even made it sound like Google's cloud wasn't all built out yet. So we're looking at Amazon, we're looking at Apple, and we're looking at Microsoft. And so my question back to you is, can anybody explain to me? I understand Microsoft gets gaming, and they're building this for gaming, but why Microsoft? Why not one of the other two cloud companies?
But my read on it is, again, because of the things that they're getting out of it, and specifically quoted from the IGN article and from Phil Spencer, is that what Microsoft is getting out of it is hardware components, image sensors, and artificial intelligence. Now, that is what the MOU covers. So specifically, what was signed was a memorandum of understanding, or what we call in the biz an MOU, which is an agreement that to share proprietary data between the two of them. It is not necessarily PlayStation Now, PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Network is moving to Microsoft Azure. That's kind of what it leads you to believe, and there's probably hefty discussions going on about that. But it's specifically an MOU. The reason I think it is that this partnership was made is, again, when you think about the corporate strategy, is one of the things that I think doesn't necessarily leak over into the game conversation, but gets covered in tech journalism, is one of the best companies in the world at image sensors is Sony. So a lot of your smartphones, the image sensors in those are Sony camera lenses and Sony imaging sensors. And so when you talk about HoloLens and what Microsoft is trying to pull off, and remember, and HoloLens is an enterprise play for Microsoft. So it's a big money. My view of the Microsoft corporation structure, when you talk about who's earning what, is Xbox is nice because it's steady. It's not super huge big numbers, but it's consistent and it's reliable, which is a big thing that Wall Street looks for. Big money is in enterprise stuff. Enterprise stuff can be stable, but enterprise stuff can also live and die on big swings from the loss or gain of big contracts. Getting HoloLens into a lot of people, and Microsoft's effort is to get HoloLens into what they call, I think they call them frontline employees, but they want them in the hands of people who are direct contributors who are doing work. It's even beyond, like, it's not an engineer sitting at a drafting table making an engineering wiring diagram. It's getting it into a field engineer or even an assembly person out on the floor to enhance their ability to put together a highly complicated piece of machinery. It's a big play, and when a company buys those, they buy them in like hundreds, and it winds up being millions of dollars. So I'm firmly convinced that what Microsoft gets out of this is, like they said, is the image sensors. They mentioned artificial intelligence, which I think Microsoft is ahead of Sony on that. But Sony might have some specific implementations in terms of pairing it with image sensors and software that Microsoft might benefit from.
Yeah, I was just going to say about the AI too, is I think Microsoft's one of the leaders in that. They're one of the few companies you actually see who have commercials promoting their AI, which we all know is not real AI, but they're up there with IBM and others promoting that. I haven't seen Sony do that. I think we all agree Sony is a phenomenal consumer electronics company. And I think even Lenovo licensed some of their VR tech, didn't they? The Halo strap and maybe some of the designs of that. So, no, they're a great company. I like seeing these two companies work together. I guess when you put it all together, it does make sense.
Prime, how are you feeling about the fact that there's only 2 SKUs now, and the fact that your options now, you no longer have a low-cost option to go into next generation Xbox? You can only come in, as far as we know right now, at the high-cost option.
Yeah, I mean, we still don't even know how high that cost will be. I mean, probably it's going to be 500, more than likely, maybe 450. I mean, who knows, 400 or 500. But I mean, they did this with. I mean, there was this big rumor with the Xbox One when it was first going to come out. There was supposed to be this little hockey puck, like Roku type device that was going to, give you the entertainment stuff, but you could also stream through it. That never appeared and never, materialized at all. So to me, it's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal that there's only going to be 1 SKU again. More than likely, they'll probably do a discless X or Scarlet version or whatever they're going to call it, going forward, maybe a couple years afterwards or a year afterwards, maybe even. Just once they get the main system out there. So it's not a really big deal. It was always a rumor that there was going to be two. These rumors are always flying around. Maybe it was. Maybe they backed off, kind of just like the Xbox One, and they're like, maybe we're just going to hold off for the two SKUs. We don't want to throw too much out there. When we're trying to get Scarlet out there, at first. So I don't. To me, I don't think it's not a big deal, just to have the one.
I wonder too if there is some rationale here, some explanation with where they're at with the cloud service, right? Like it seemed like they were not as far along as many analysts kind of expected they were going to be. That we're only getting kind of a beta of it. It's only going to be streaming from the Xbox to another, to a platform. It's not going to be real full cloud streaming. At least this year, potentially into next year. So it seems to be rolling that out slower than anticipated. And I would agree with you, Prime, that once that comes up, they still keep the window and the door open for putting that hockey puck out there that is the more streaming based one.
Yeah, and if it's one thing that we've seen over the last few years, what we think that we know is those things have a very high speed to market, right? There's no need strategically to put yourself in the outs by potentially announcing that second SKU now if your service backbone's not going to be there to support it. As I'm speculating DBQ, you can always announce that in summer and let it drop in the fall. It's not like people need to pre-order in droves what it was probably going to be like a $100 or $150 SKU, right? The only other thing I'll mention before we move on to talk about sales numbers is another potential reason why Sony may have gone to Microsoft for this is that if you go to Amazon to do AWS, you're just another AWS customer. There's nothing special about. If the only thing Sony is really looking to host in that environment is PlayStation Network, you're just another customer to Amazon. Like they're not going to necessarily bend over backwards for you. If you go to Google's a story problem. These aren't my words. It's actually the words of a Facebook engineer that I listened to on Software Engineering Daily a few weeks ago. And it rings true. The problem with Google is Google always wants to do moonshots, and that's what they're always after. And they get very bored, as I do, with like once something becomes cookie cutter and like becomes something that anybody can do, Google's no longer interested in it. Whereas what you want, if you're going to forklift PlayStation Network, what you want stability, commitment, and somebody who's not necessarily chasing the next whiz-bang technology thing, right? Microsoft's not running around trying to write their own JavaScript language like Google seems to try to do once a year, right? So that may have been some of the things that drove it. Let's talk sales, gentlemen. I know this is going to jazz DBQ up. So on the UK charts, and once again, I will reiterate for listeners of the Enough to Keep Going podcast, the reason we pay attention to the UK numbers is because they are often indicative of what we can expect from US numbers. And for whatever reason, the UK games industry is more open and transparent, and we get those numbers faster than we see NPD numbers. So we will talk about UK numbers for June, whereas we will only be talking about NPD numbers for the month of May for this conversation. So last week in the UK, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled popped to the top of the charts, followed by FIFA 19. Forza Horizon 4, amazing that game is still going as strongly as it is. And as I always say, every time we do this segment, you got to love the Brits because they love racing as much as I do. Days Gone, we'll talk about that, but it comes in at number 4. Red Dead Redemption 2 still going strong, actually at 5, beating out Grand Theft Auto 5, despite the fact that Red Dead Redemption 2's online traction, as we understand it, is not as great as Grand Theft Auto Online. Battlefield 5 surges up to number 6, probably on the strength of the announcements of new content that will be dropping, surprisingly. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in at number 8, The Division 2 at 9, and Anthem at 10. So those Brits get a lot of things right, but there are some things that we will definitely question in our discussion. On to the NPD numbers, and we'll swing back around on all these. Mortal Kombat 11 comes in at number 1. Days Gone still in the US in at number 2. A game that I recently picked up, Total War 3 Kingdoms, coming in at number 3. Gotta love the PC market in North America. Rage 2, the game that quirkily is turning out to be morphing into a games as a service, surprisingly comes in at number 4, beating out Grand Theft Auto at number 5. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in at 6, Red Dead Redemption 2 at 7, MLB The Show, one of DBQ and I's favorites, in at number 8. Gotta love what spring does for that franchise. Minecraft in at number 9. What the world caused that? And NBA 2K19 holding strong at 10 by a pinky. Gentlemen, what do you guys think about these sales numbers and what they may or may not indicate? For the industry prime, I'll let you get this one started.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised on the Maze US list here. Total War being up there. I didn't even expect that. I mean, sure, it's a great game and everything. I'm just not, PC guy, and I've never played any of those games. Minecraft's still up there. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I know they released a big update at the time, and I think it was a couple weeks ago. Actually, for a couple weeks, it was number 1, or at least for a week, it was number 1 on the eShop also. So I don't know. I guess
well, I was going to ask, do you think this is because these are not platform specific? They are aggregate numbers. So do you think this is largely driven by Nintendo Switch sales?
No, I was just giving that as an example, as another example of it being like on a top spot. Obviously, there was number 1. Here it's number 9, but still in top 10. I mean, it's kind of peaked itself into the top 10 here and there the last few months. So I'm not really sure why. I mean, it's a great game. I mean, don't get me wrong. And like I said, there's a major update a month or 2 ago, I believe. But yeah, I just don't. I mean, I thought everybody had it already on everything like I do. So yeah, it was just kind of weird. And I guess the other weird thing is just the number 1 and number 2. Once again, it's Mortal Kombat and Days Gone. Mortal Kombat, great game. I love it. I beat the single player, and it's going strong. Days Gone, I mean, okay. I mean, it got such tepid reviews. I'm not sure how it's still at number 2, but I mean, I guess people are enjoying it, which is fine. I mean, maybe I would play it if I had a PlayStation 4, but yeah. But overall, from May and even into April for the NPDs, there's maybe only a few games that kind of maybe shifted around a little, or not even on the list anymore. So it's just kind of, I guess, just stagnant, just because we're getting into that late spring summer season. So these numbers probably won't change all too much. I guess there's a few games come out this summer, but we'll see what happens. And I guess just overall, obviously hardware and software are down for May, but I guess that's to be expected. So, DB, any thoughts on the NPD, on the US side at least, or
Sure.
UK?
Yeah, I think on the US side, that your statement about Minecraft, that everybody has it, I think we could probably say the same thing about Grand Theft Auto and its reign in the top 10 for the last 5 years. So I think, and Minecraft certainly has shown some resiliency. Twitch numbers are back up. It peaked over Fortnite for a little while in the last couple weeks as well. So it's not surprising that there's some consistency there, along with NBA 2K. I would think that when we hit June, NBA 2K is going to peak up a little higher because of the $3 sale that it had on all platforms. So that will increase its numbers. Again, these are these revenue, or maybe it won't if it's revenue. Yeah, I'm the Total War Three Kingdoms is a great showing for something that I don't think has any console ports. Right? This is
right. That's yeah, and yes. So a reminder that these numbers are by revenue; they are not by units sold. And yeah, it's amazing. I mean, on the NPD number side, you got MK11, which is cross-platform, so you have aggregate numbers across everything. You have Days Gone, which is a console exclusive. Granted, console exclusive for the console that has like 100 million install base right now. But you have Total War Three Kingdoms, which is on PC and PC only. Now, again, what I've come to feel like I've discovered, much as I did with Bethesda in the wake of E3, is that Total War apparently has a rabid fan following in the PC community. And I think people have been very hungry for a Total War game that is in that Total War Rome combination strategy RTS style that gets back to kind of the core that was Total War Rome. After I think that core ethos kind of drifted off, in the transition from, Rome to Medieval 2 to Attila with a quick pit stop with Warhammer, and then now finally back to kind of more of the core of the series. But I'm sorry, go ahead, DB.
No, I'm just shaking that. I'm just shaking my head. Like, yes, I forgot about the Warhammer piece, but you're right. I think there's a thirst for this type of game out there, and if we're talking about platform holders, right? Like, yes, Days Gone and PlayStation has a ton, but also the potential for PC platform holders is also, we don't necessarily talk about PC units sold when you think about how many, consoles are out and into homes in terms of overall sales, but the potential there on PC side is huge.
Yeah, and it's nice to see it. Of course, we're never going to see the comparison until we see digital sales and revenue aggregated, but it's very nice to see a game like Total War 3 Kingdoms rise to the top when it's only on PC versus cross-platform titles that are on consoles like Rage 2, even over console exclusives like Super Smash Bros., Red Dead Redemption 2, MLB The Show, when the PC's biggest problem, in my opinion, is Steam and the way things are constantly go on sale. But also maybe more importantly is this, I think the impact that Matt Piscala talks about like half of the gaming consumer market that just doesn't pay for games. I think that problem is most prevalent on PC. And so for this game to get the uptake that it's gotten, to carry it above a lot of crop of multi-platform stuff is very impressive. Way to go, Sega. you never knew we'd be saying that like 20, 30 years ago.
I didn't realize it was a Sega game.
Yeah, so it's Creative Assembly is the developer and Sega is the publisher. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that they published it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gray, any thoughts from your end on these numbers, MPD or UK side?
Yeah, I guess it made me realize how much I'm into VR because none of these games are on my list. I was like, no, and don't get me wrong, we've had a lot of fun in the years past with Minecraft. I know Osiris Prime, we toured your land years ago and played a lot with the grandkids. But a lot of these new games, it's just like you can see, I've swung so far away from the Xbox to the PC and really to only VR games. I guess that's why me and Aga host the VR Game Night show on Wednesday nights. That would be tomorrow night. But yeah, it just dawned on me looking at that list. It's like, wow, I've really gone into a niche here because none of these games support VR. Well, Minecraft does, and it's really good in VR.
Oh, have you tried it?
Oh yeah, Minecraft is awesome in VR. It is absolutely awesome. Yeah, does it support PSVR? I don't know if it does, but
Not yet, at least. No.
Yeah, so if you have it on the PC, it definitely supports VR. It's awesome. It really is awesome.
Yeah, and they had actually the big news on their augmented reality game too. That's supposed to be coming out. So I don't know. Maybe that jump started people to start buying it again. I don't know. So just kind of weird. That's one of the titles that it's not cross-buy, but it does have the cross-save. So as long as you have a Microsoft account, you can at least on the Switch and on PC and obviously Xbox, you can bring all your saves down to it. So that's kind of nice too.
So is this a walking around Minecraft game?
Yeah, it's kind of like a hybrid Minecraft and Pokemon Go, where you can kind of like build stuff up in certain areas and stuff like that. So
okay. I hope that strategically they're going to give plenty of room between Harry Potter's release this past week and dropping that, because that thing is a behemoth that not quite Pokemon size, but man, they need to let that Minecraft AR marinate for a little bit.
Yeah, I think they got the beta coming out this summer, or maybe next month, I think.
Okay.
So yeah.
So Gray, your comment on VR, it invites a thing that I'm gonna throw out here. I think maybe hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about it tomorrow. Is it makes me feel and inquire about whether or not VR is akin to another genre that sounds similar, which is BR. Meaning, one of my problems in uptake of VR is I'm gravitating towards a lot of games that have a VR mode versus trying to be a VR game. We've talked on this podcast about how, at least my belief is, and I think Swiss Guard's belief is too, that BR, Battle Royale, is a mode. It's not an entire game. And that's, if it's packaged, that's how we prefer to see it packaged. In the VR space, I'm feeling most inclined to play things that like I love Project Cars 2 because I can play it in conventional mode and then I can put on a headset and play it in VR mode. Overload for PC, The Descent spiritual successor, I can play in regular mode or I can play it in VR. And that's more the games that I'm gravitating towards because again, as we discussed last week, I've seen so much driver instability that I like if I want to play a game and the VR headset is acting up because of a Windows update or a Steam update or an Oculus update, I want to be able to play that game in conventional mode. So that's a topic I'll pitch that we crack the seal on potentially tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll just throw out there too that if you are a Project Cars fan, or an Elite Dangerous fan, or a Minecraft fan, like we are, or like I am, the first time you try it in VR, that just makes those games so much more awesome. Now,
Oh yeah,
you cannot always play it in VR. I mean, sometimes it's impractical. You're on the bus, you're on the train, you're camping, but having that option, and when you first do it, when you first step up out of your chair in Elite Dangerous and walk around your ship, or you first look up at that castle you built in Minecraft, and for the first time you're seeing it in real proportions, it's a great mode, and I commend those VR games like Star Trek Bridge Crew who've gone back and put 2D game modes in so we can play with our friends who don't have VR who get motion sickness. And my wife's one of those people who gets motion sickness easily. So I do think I would love to see a future where games have, they have 1080p, they have 4K, they have VR. You know what I'm saying? And maybe they even have 3D for the 3D TVs, So yeah, I'm with you there.
Very cool. Very cool. Gentlemen, we have amazingly come in right on time. Any other topics that we would need to talk about or anything else we want to break the cover on?
No, I think it's pretty fitting that we wrap up the 100th show with some financial talk with our NPDs. So nice poll there.
Well, thanks so much. We're going to continue doing this for another 100 episodes, as far as I understand. That's what I've been told anyway.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say thank you to all you gentlemen and Swissguard, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. But it's been a blast these 100 episodes, and even before that, me and Gray and Agascles had gone, way back. He was Zeusadamus back then. We were doing. I'm not sure how far we got with those podcasts. I know it kind of went in and out there at the end. And finally, we had to break off, and then we started. Me and Agascles and Elemental Storm. Started up again, and then we morphed into with DB, and then we added Swiss and everything. And it's just been a blast, and I want to thank you, gentlemen, for giving me a chance to get my voice out there. So thank you.
And I want to congratulate you guys one more time for making 100 episodes. It's real, like Osiris just said. It's really, you guys are around 300 episodes, but congratulations. That's a huge feat.
Well, thanks, and thank you, Gray, for helping get us started back in Band of Gamers days, and as we continue to try to respond and think about what makes sense for where we're at. And I think the benefit for all of us is that we can be flexible and be responsive to not only our own interests and whims, but also those of the industry as well. So yes, chances are we will be around another 100 episodes, but whether or not it's the 200th or we've rebranded and we continue to have conversations, I think the important piece is the ability to have these conversations and to disagree and to hopefully throw a little bit more of perspective out there for people as well.
Yeah, well said, all. Yeah, and so Gray and I also do, as he mentioned, podcasts. We record in the middle of the week, VR Game Nights, which is on his channel, The Gamer Show. We'll put the link for that in the show notes down below, where we talk about virtual reality, the virtual reality segment of the gaming industry, and talk about that each week. Just to reiterate, as we're closing here, as everybody has said their great mentions of episode 100, to reiterate to the fans, the listeners, the viewers, the reason why the cast members of this show do the show, the gamers who are members of the cast, is because we have a depth of conversation and a breadth of conversation that we are unable to have. I mean, we all have friends, but the degree to which they dig into the industry, the art, and the social impact of gaming isn't as wide or deep as we have done on this show. And again, I say that going all the way back to Gray and Casual Adult Gamers and the Band of Gamers podcast and the CAG cast and everything going back to the beginning of time. So that's why we do it, and that's what we try and bring to you every week. If you talk about why would you listen to this podcast, why would you recommend this podcast to someone else, it's because I'm going to have the good degree of respect for the other game show podcasts. Those guys are all predominantly paid professionals, or at least they monetize those shows as their profession. What we present here is the perspective of regular Joe people who pay for their games and go through the struggle of figuring out how to afford our games and our equipment. We're also grown-ups who have houses, wives, jobs, trying to figure out how to send kids to college and pay off the house and save money for retirement, but we still game, and that's the perspective that we give. But then the other thing that you get is, and again, I have the utmost respect for those guys, the other games podcasts are predominantly journalists. They predominantly went to school to be journalists, if they went to school. The cast here comes from a wide range of professions. Again, as I put in the show notes, we have expertise in software engineering, software design, software development, implementation, field engineering, integration, systems engineering, information technology, economy, library science. And you don't get that on the other podcasts. You get people who were primarily educated on how to write. And unfortunately, a lot of times there's things that they miss, things that they don't fully understand about software development, things that they don't fully understand about technology. And we try and give you those extra elements here. So thanks so much for joining in for this 100th episode. Like I said, we're going to be here continuing to do this for some time into the future. Meet us back here every week on Tuesday nights. Next episode next week will be our Gamer Experience show, the first one for July. If we do one next week, we're still sorting that schedule out. Whenever it is, the next episode will be a Gamer Experience episode. And then we will carry on throughout the year. We're now in the downhill slope run from E3 down to our Gaming Superlative Award show. So now, the first part of the year, it's all about the build-up of the news cycle, and now it's all downhill in playing what drops and formulating our opinion about how the game industry delivers on the promises that it's made from January up through E3. So on behalf of myself, Agassiz Stamus from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, and all of us from the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, and Gray the Gamer from the Gamer Show channel on YouTube, this has been the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast, Grown-Ups Who Game. Thank you so much for joining in. Until next time, happy hunting, stay safe out there, play the games that you like. Good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's it for us. We're out.